Now the last speaker is retired Colonel Ali Joshar, Vice President of ASSAM, and he's going to talk about the war doctrine and the impact on the concepts. And need to revise the war law. Distinguished President, dear participants, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to simply greet you. It has been a long day, and being the last panelist is rather unfortunate. But the previous speakers have simply shared everything which needs to be said. It's going to be a summary, so please bear with me in this respect. I will try to complete it in a very short period of time. So starting from the last quarter in the world, in our country, and in the neighbor countries, what are the results that we have come across? When we look at the last 3 decades, the world is experiencing a very complicated war profile. I want to share my screen, but I think there is a problem with sharing the screen.
Ali Bey, sunumunuzu bilgisayarda açtıktan sonra tekrar Zoom'a dönün. Share screen yeşil tuşuyla paylaşın.
Click on share screen. Yeah, that's what I did.
Tanıyorum hocam. Evet, zaman kaybetmemek adına devam ediyorum.
Okay, so let's continue.
Bu kapsamda son yıllarda oldukça sık söz edilen hibrit savaş,
hybrid
siber savaş,
cyber war,
aynı şekilde biyolojik savaş,
biological war,
savaşlar esnasında kullanılan insansız kara, hava, deniz savaş
and drones.
sunduğu imkan olarak muharebe istihbaratının oldukça kolaylaşması adeta
And the introduction of the intelligence tools, the military doctrines, and the war law within the scope of everything which have been developed needs to be revised. Particularly in the last 2 decades, there has been a bloody and a very insidious type of war. The humanity is simply facing a threat, and the imperial forces are unlawfully occupying Palestine, Libya, Kashmir, and so many different places. Autonomic and robotic technologies are reshaping the war fields, and the improvements in the artificial intelligence are contributing to the fact that maybe human beings will start sharing their decision-making capacities with the other stakeholders. Hybrid war is the new type of war. Well, this could be open or overt. And when we look at the new techniques and the use of communication techniques, we see this is even reinforced. So, so it's actually a mix of conventional and guerrilla war. And when we look at the definitions, they have been simply reshaped surrounding this definition. When we look at the hybrid war, state, non-state factors, state-supported, and factors, conventional threats, irregular war, terrorism, are the factors which need to be taken into consideration. When we look at the cyber war, that was an aspect of the hybrid war. One state hacking, attacking, or disrupting the network and the operations of another state. All of the threats happening in the cyber area need to be tackled by different institutions and agencies collaborating with one another, also increasing the awareness on different levels. When we look at the types of cyber attacks, the final users' computers would be targeted. So there are so many different types. I would be merely quoting a number of those. So tapping and unservicing, IP tricking, IP phishing, cryptographic attacks, social engineering, trapping, trapgate, phishing, replacement, fake mass mailing, timing tricks, so on and so forth. So in case cyber war is implemented, if we have to talk about the threats in the nuclear facilities, on the nuclear and natural gas pipelines, there could be problems. Planes could hit one another because of signaling tricking. The satellites would go out of their orbits when there is an interruption or disruption in the electronic banking. People would not be able to simply make money transfers, or in case of any electrical hacking. Could you please go slower? So when we look at the movement area and the objectives of the cyber war, in the 21st century, one of the operational fields is cyber space, which could be added to the conventional areas of command. It has repercussions on all of those. So one state, in order to attack one another, it's a cyber attack which is designated. If they would like to disrupt the cyber security operations like hacking or piracy, they are they are using these methods. And in 2015, American Congress Intelligence Survey says that even though there is no clear doctrinal definition, cyber war is equal to simply a physical war, or it could be simply the equal to in terms of utilization of the military aspects. So today, when the codes are used in order to attack the conventional missiles, so and so forth, so they could be used in combination. When we look at the cyber war, any type of device could be turned into a weapon in this respect. So even the buttons of a computer keyboard could be turned into a weapon. We have so many documents, and the British have simply constituted a social media army, and China has a blue army, which is a huge army, and they are completely exclusively in charge of these activities which I have mentioned. Another part of the hybrid war, which is the biological war, they are using microorganisms. They are trying to kill or limit the activities of the people, animals, and the plants, bacteria, viruses, protozoa, and some other microorganisms could be used as microorganism agents. Another subpart of biological war is entomological, and again, it is used as a tool to harm the other party, and it's a method of a biological war. And in the Second World War, the potato bugs, according to some claims, were used by the German army, but there is no evidence. So through a pathogen, the bugs are infected and they were sent to the targeted areas. And the bugs were acting as pesticides, and the grasshoppers, in the last year, they were moving towards Asia, but then again, their course changed to Middle East. And likewise, coronavirus, as we heard from the previous speakers,
olma ihtimali vardır. COVID-19'un bu tür bir biyolojik
So there's a possibility that COVID-19 could be such a bioweapon, and it could be a socio-psychological weapon. And it basically uses fear, and it presses people, it creates anxiety and psychological oppression. you know, one of the latest means of war is unmanned vehicles, and you know, they could be seen in every fourth dimension of the war, you know, like land, navy, air, and space. Automobiles and robotic technologies are reshaping the world. And as the time goes by, AI is also improving fast, and it could basically get an important share of the capacity of war from humans. So, in general, these are critical technologies that could act without humans. In this regard, Baykar machinery made a flying car that is called Cezeri, and Cezeri lived in 12th century. He could be regarded as the father of cybernetics and robotic sciences. This is why they named it after him. And this vehicle could be from public transportation to logistic supports and military and health usage. It will have a lot of fields, and it will play an important role in terms of shipping. Unmanned vehicles could be in various forms, or they could even take the form of a dog, like, you know, you've seen examples of that. One of the most definite dimension of the unmanned vehicles are the drones, the weaponized drones. They could be used for military and civilian usage. For the military use, it could be used for attack or reconnaissance, and its size changes from the size of an insect to a plane. The performance of UAVs exhibited itself in Azerbaijan, our sister state, and since 2016, you know, the Euphrates Shield and Olive Branch operation, and in others, it was used. And in Idlib, in the south of M4, it contributed to stopping the regime forces. In Turkey, you know, we used to buy it from the United States, and we used to rent it from Israel. And in 1992, advancements were made, and you know, different names were given to them: Turna, Keklik, Pelikan, and Martı. And Baykar made a version of its own that was deployed on Mount Gabar. And in 2007, there was an UAV called Watcher, Gözcü in Turkish. And in 2008, the first UAV was supported by Bayraktar TB2, and Karayel, made by Vestel, was put into inventory of Turkish Air Forces. In this day, in 2020, Anka, Aksungur, Bayraktar, Akıncı UAVs took their places in the inventory of Turkish armed forces. I'd like to mention that, you know, the jet fighter pilots are kind of falling behind the UAVs. Even the pilots of Su-47, well, two of them were shut down by TB2s, the Turkish UAVs. Maybe it didn't reflect much on media, but I listened to those who witnessed the event itself. Our UAV's superiority stemmed from this. The pilots get tired after a certain amount of time, and they lose the situational awareness capacity, and they lose the orientation and go through some kind of vertigo. So it is basically a loss of consciousness out of G-force. Because of acrobatic move, if the pilots do them for a long time, they lose consciousness, and the UAVs don't have any situation like that, and they could be superior to jet fighters. We have Kamikaze, Alpago, Tohan, and Serçe 1, and they have been used intensely in the recent conflicts. Other than that, there is ULAK, unmanned naval vehicle, reconnaissance and intelligence, and armed escorting, and strategic facility protection, and it is used in bases as well. There is the coefficient concept, in conventional war doctrine. At the strategic operational tactical level, they elevate the destruction capacity of the troops, and it has a certain maneuverability, and such superior wars are basically taken as the force coefficient, and once they are used, it destroys the capacity of the opponent, the enemy, and it brings a victory. As a coefficient, SİHA, once compared to jet fighters, they've been useful, and they have helped destruction of more than 1,000 terrorists. These new means bring a lot of change to doctrine as well. They bring coefficient and increase the capacity, and the cutting edge weapon system basically force the changes in the existing doctrines. For example, advanced management concept has changed, and they should be the existing legislation should change accordingly. In 1949, the Geneva Agreement was put into effect, but it doesn't really undertake the necessities of the law of war. The legal works under NATO were never conducted in a fair manner. Considering these necessities, the law on the war should be updated. War basically is use of force when diplomacy is less than enough. And it basically involves an antagonistic attitude, and the agent of the war is the state. So Recently in Turkey,
imkan ve kabiliyetlerle milli ve yerli savunma sistemleriyle yerlilik oranına
with its local and national capacity, we reached about 90% of the national production, and it serves as an example to the rest of the world. It serves as an example to the rest of the Islamic countries. And in this regard, it may constitute the kernel of the Islamic countries, and the friendly approaches of some countries are giving us this hope. In a world order where justice is non-existent, it is harming our conscience. Turkey has the capacity to lead the world in this regard. As a result, the concepts of war should be updated, and the general defense plans and force formations at strategic, tactical, and operational levels, they should be rehandled, and the existing structures in the Islamic world should be reorganized. And in terms of destruction of the existing threats, the aforementioned changes should be done and revised at the national scale and in a national manner. And without further saying, I am ending what I have to say. Thank you very much.